come up over that horizon was to us a vital clue to the possible importance of this fixed reference point in space to solving the entire distance problem from the shuttle. So let's look at our video again in close-up. Pay careful attention to what I call the target object, which now suddenly pops on, then moves smoothly to the left. Its behavior is exactly like something suddenly popping into view by coming over the physical, very opaque horizon of the Earth. Let's take another look at that. If we can prove that that's exactly what we're seeing, then this simple fact, if we can establish that it is a fact, automatically fixes the object's distance in relation to the shuttle as the distance to that horizon, and the airglow 40 miles above it. At the peculiar flash, the dot immediately turns hard right and undergoes extreme acceleration, heading upward on our two-dimensional TV screen across the airglow limb. This limb, which we have just established is some 1,700 miles from the space shuttle, physically marks the boundary between the upper atmosphere and airless space. At the precise moment that our object crosses this bright limb, it dims out as if someone was turning down a light. The glowing object we are seeing is at the physical horizon of the Earth, in the atmosphere, some 1,700 miles from the shuttle's TV camera. If the glowing dot were only debris lit by sunlight, as NASA flatly argues, the object's sudden upward motion must make it brighter because it's flying into growing daylight. Instead, the dot grows dimmer, consistent with a much more distant physical location, because the Earth's horizon, 1,700 miles behind the shuttle, is still in total darkness. NASA's explanation for the flash is that you're seeing a thruster firing aboard the shuttle. If this were true, the thruster firing would change the attitude of the entire shuttle and therefore the direction of the setting stars. Since this does not occur, this cannot be the explanation for what we've been observing. The calculations say that this object had to also be at least as far away from the space shuttle as the airglow, therefore fixing its distance in terms of simple physics as 1,700 miles away. Since we have now established beyond any reasonable doubt this fascinating object's distance from the shuttle, the rest is easy, if slightly unbelievable. Our little dot is in fact drifting along at a leisurely pace of some 15 miles per second. That's about 54,000 miles per hour. We say it's drifting because when you see our little target object react to that peculiar flash that you're quite familiar with by now, the undisputed star of our update accelerates in less than 2 seconds to over 200,000 miles per hour. And for those of you who may be wondering how many G's this little guy experiences when it accelerates in reaction to that flash, its numbers clock out at a cool 14,000 times the Earth's gravitational acceleration. A force of 14,000 G's is roughly equivalent to dropping a 10-story building on top of you. 200,000 miles per hour in less than 2 seconds, 14,000 G's. Obviously, nothing in our space technology can even begin to approach numbers like this and have pilots survive. In fact, nothing in our known laws of physics provides for propulsive performances and capabilities such as those we've just observed. But this is well within, in fact, it is implicit in any hyperdimensional technologies capable of literally altering gravity. We have calculated the actual velocities of these two peculiar streaks of light. They are indeed consistent with a much publicized Star Wars weapon system from the Pentagon called brilliant pebbles. Essentially a high-tech shotgun burst of thousands of tiny plastic pellets accelerated to about 1,000 miles per second by an electromagnetic accelerator called a railgun. If this is true, the flash you're seeing is not light. It's an effect in the camera created by the electromagnetic pulse that accelerates the brilliant pebbles. Quite a weapon, but no match for a vehicle capable of nimbly darting away at over 14,000 Gs, as we've seen. The target You now see why we've been calling our little glowing dot by this peculiar name, in fact, evades this shot with ease. This and a host of other actions by all the other anomalous dots present in this sequence, which we haven't time to talk about, has led us to this amazing conclusion, that the shuttle cameras that night somehow showed us an active Star Wars weapons system in Earth orbit, and the system is using our own American hyperdimensional technology.
At the time that I first saw that tape, I didn't know that we had disc-shaped craft on patrol with beam weapons. I didn't know that. But since then, I've learned that we have them on regular patrol in space. U.S.
military has disc-shaped.
U.S. military has disc-shaped craft that patrol in orbit. And they do shoot down visitors.
First off, how are they able to go undetected?
Well, we know where they are, and we know that the Russians have some up there too.
Where are they?
They're not in orbit because they move around. They're not confined to orbits. They're on patrol up there.
How many?
I don't know how many are on patrol at a time, but we have 2 squadrons of them that are running these patrols.
Squadron being how many in the squadron?
A squadron of fighter airplanes is 15 airplanes, 15 vehicles.
So
I don't know what a UFO squadron is, or a disc squadron is, but if it's 10, even 10 vehicles, that's 20 vehicles available. There's probably 2 on patrol all the time.
Are these the result of successful back engineering projects?
Yeah. The discs are not built by one company. The modules are built by different companies, so no one company has the whole vehicle.
And then assembled?
And then assembled by the government out at Lancaster, and then flown to their...
Lancaster where?
Lancaster, California.
What base is that associated
Edwards
with?
Air Force Base.
Edwards.
And then they're flown to their operating facility. I understand there's one out in California near Point Mugu and one under Beale Air Force Base. But the operational discs were built, the ones that are on patrol were built over 10 years ago. And they evolved from the gravity control technology that was developed at Alice Springs out in Australia. And from that we designed operational discs to go on patrol. This was the original Star Wars project that was envisioned by President Reagan. Yeah, the money that was put up for Star Wars was really put up to finish the development of the operational discs, but we let the public think we were spending it on telescopes and other research materials. They're probably doing that too, but the impetus for the Star Wars program was to get patrols in space. I think that operational discs were used the first time on the first Iraq War, when we went in there and pinpointed all the command and control facilities and took them out in one night. We alleged that the F-117s did it, but the F-117s couldn't sit still and target an object and remain on it, hold a laser beam on it. And the F-117s made a noise. There's a lot of reasons why it probably was not an F-117, although that's what we said did it. I think that we used our operational discs that are nearby to go in, and they're invisible and they make no noise and they can sit still in the air, and they just put the beam on the targets, and the missiles came in and homed on the beam. These organizations they operate under their own command structure. They don't report up through the Chief of Staff of the Army, the Air Force, Navy, or anybody else. They have their own line, and it probably reports only to the secret government and not anybody else in between. They are on patrol, have been for 10 years. They carry beam weapons. They've solved the gravity control problem. They don't carry a lot of fuel. Gary McKinnon, the computer nerd in London that broke into black projects and got this information. That hasn't been published in the newspapers. We've been very carefully trying to cover up what he might have known, but the underground knows. I think one of the reasons we're trying desperately to get Gary McKinnon in our hands here in this country is to successfully discredit what he has said about the black projects that involve a space carrier fleet. He says that he